2200 Fahrenheit, 1200 Celsius. That's what clear glass looks like when it's really, really hot. It will also just drip and fall off if we stop turning that pipe. So you have to keep it flipping, turning, try to keep it on center. The next step is to introduce the bubble. And we want our bubble to come out nice and even. So right now he's shaping the glass, rolling it on a steel top table. The table's called the marver. Trying to even up all that glass. Whenever he's ready, he's going to put a puff of air into the mouthpiece end. So trap the air with his thumb. And then the air will have nowhere else to go. It's going to go into the glass, creating our bubble. And it happens quick, and it only happens once, so don't blink when he does this part. Here we go. Bubble time. Air trapped in the tube. Watch right here. Here it goes. There it is. You all see that? Well, good. That's our demo. Thanks for coming. So that's our starter bubble. We can make something with that. That's enough glass to make some sort of object about this size. We want to make something a little bit bigger. So we need to add more glass to this. Glass blowing is a layering process. Nice flames there. We coat that tool with beeswax, so that you're seeing the beeswax burn off the blades. So, layering process. Everything you see here starts out like this. To make something really big, you start with a larger diameter pipe, bigger furnace, bigger studio, bigger team, bigger people, everything bigger. Make something bigger. And this is starting to look clear now. We want this to cool down to about 1000 Fahrenheit before we put the next layer on. If we try to put this back into the furnace to gather the next layer, and this is still hot, still moving, it will collapse our bubble, and we'll have to start over. So, this glass starts moving around 1200 Fahrenheit. So it looks clear, it's going to sound cold, nice and solid. Here we go, back into our furnace. In the bottom of that furnace, there's a ceramic crucible made of high-fired clay. It's about 1 inch thick, and it's just holding a bottle of glass all the time, ready for us to gather it out. So 2 gathers. That'll be all the clear glass we use for this piece. Starting to apply some color next. And that's just rolling through a pile of crushed up colored glass. And it sticks right to the outside. So we roll through there. The heat from the furnace warms up those shards. Hot glass sticks to other hot glass. They're small enough little bits of colored glass that they just get heated instantly. And then we roll through there. We can get these colors in opaque, transparent, different sizes. Anything from a solid bar of colored glass all the way down into a fine powder. Different sizes in between that. And it gives you this kind of speckly look when you roll through the chips of it. It's a pretty direct translation if you just imagine what's in those jars on the side of your piece. You know, if you wanted something with larger dots and spots, you roll through larger dots and spots. So first roll through transparent kind of gold color, and now an opaque like lapis blue kind of sprinkled throughout. And then behind us, this is our reheating chamber. Every time we come out of the fire, the glass is getting colder and colder. It gets too cold, you can't work with it. So we'll be in and out of the reheating chamber throughout the making of whatever we're making. You have to keep it hot. The reheating chamber, same temperature as our furnace, 2200 Fahrenheit, 1200 Celsius. There's no glass in there. I turned it on about an hour before our first show. I turned it on around 10 o'clock today. It takes about an hour to heat up. We turn it off when we go home. This one stays on all the time. We blow glass every day, so we need glass to work with. Very common in the glass blowing studio to have the furnace running for a couple of years before you turn it off to rebuild the crucible that holds the glass. Melting in all those colors. That's going to sit at the bench. Going to roll through a wooden tool. It's called a block. Big wet wooden spoon. Shake this bubble up. Even everything out. Get us kind of back on center. Sometimes they can fall off center while we're applying the color. straighten everything up. A little air, expanding that bubble. Swing it because it looks super cool. Stretch the glass too. He's cooling off the tip on the steel now, rolling it across the steel at rapidly moving heat where it's touching the metal. So, make the tip of the bubble colder, blow into it, so it expand where it's hotter. That reserves a little thickness down at the tip. We do that because the tip of the bubble is the bottom of our piece. So we like to keep a little extra glass down there. I will start helping out a little bit. Just preheated the blades of the jacks. At some point, Matt needs to use the jacks to carve in a constriction of line in this bubble, and that's going to be our break point, so we can take it off the pipe later on. Everything we make, it has to have a line carved in it so you can get it off the pipe. So here we go. Carving with the blades of the jacks turning, trying to keep everything on center. So you stretched out a little tube, kind of a neck, like a bottleneck for this piece.
Alright, Mikey, go ahead and blow.
I'm going to start pumping air into the bubble. This is our newest glass blowing tool. Thanks to COVID. How terrible glass when we wore masks up here, so we invented this. But we found it works well for demonstrations. I can talk and blow glass at the same time. You could also just blow the pipe. So, pretty drastic change in the shape, just that one piece. Stretched it out, it's starting to look like a little vessel. We shaped it with this flexible pad. We call this the Seattle Times newspaper. I made it this morning. It's like 8 sheets folded up, soaked in water. A little smoky because it's new, but as it gets burned in, it gets a carbon layer, and then they last like 3 to 4 weeks. You keep it wet, the glass rides on steam. Focusing most of our heat on the tip of the bubble. We're going to stretch it. We're going to stretch it. So we're always thinking about the angle that you hold that pipe while the glass is hot, it's moving. You hold it down the whole time. You know, when you're walking around, it's just going to get longer and longer and keep stretching. So we're always thinking of the angle that you're holding at. You're trying to keep everything on center, turning at a consistent rate. So stretch that out. Back on the side with the newspaper. Keep everything nice and straight. Blowing, using the jacks, kind of a straight edge on the outside, get everything shaped up. And now, when it gets up, the glass is too cold to work with. That's a common question that I get. It's like, how do you know when to go back to the fire? When you're trying to change the shape and you're pushing on it with a tool and then it stops moving, there's no point in hanging out, letting it get colder and colder. So keep that thing back up. You're going to stretch more? Good. Good. Stretch more. We might put the bottom in. We've got drywood paddles for flattening. We'll use one of these to flatten the bottom of the piece. You kind of see where the heat's focused when it comes out, it's glowing a little bit more on the tip. Using the newspaper, squeezing, putting in a little detail in the shape down there. And I'm going to give it a little air. Drywood paddle. Starting to squish. Nice flat spot.
Alright, ready for the puppy.
He's ready for the puppy, he says. Alright, so the bottom's done. Here comes the tricky part. So the bottom's finished, we want to start to work on the top next. So we're going to take it off the blowpipe and transfer it onto a solid rod that is called a punty. So I have the punty, it's a counterweighted solid steel rod. I'll gather some glass on the end, shape it up on the marker, that steel top table. Very specific shape and temperature that I'm going for. When I'm ready, I'll bring it over, present it to Matt. He's going to stick it on the bottom, break it off that pipe, and we'll be attached to this little bit of glass. So this part's tricky. It's all about working together as far as temperatures and timing. This is not a guaranteed move. So if it works, we should give Matt a round of applause. And if it doesn't work, we should still give Matt a round of applause. Usually people clap louder if it hits the floor. Watch us run around the stage, try to save it. Quite entertaining. Happened to me yesterday. We saved it though. All right, here we go. So take it off the pipe, water, cracks the glass, and then you tap it. Giving me lava lamp vibes looking at this shape. So I'm going to heat the whole thing. I'll bring it back to the bench. Matt's going to check it out, make sure it's on center. Still moving quite a bit on that little connection right now. So if it's not in the middle, he can readjust it and get it as close to on center as possible before we move on and start to affect the opening. And then as soon as we took it off the pipe, I quickly came over, I heated the whole thing. That heat that I took is called a flash. It's basically a maintenance heat. We can't stay out of the fire for too long with anything that we're making and let it get too cold. If anything drops below 800 Fahrenheit, you stick it back into the fire, it will explode. We learned that by exploding things. I've exploded many things. I know Matt has to. Every glass plate. That's how you can learn and gain with time that you can stay out of the fire. And then when the glass is thinner, your window of working with it is shorter, because when it's thinner, it's going to heat up faster, it's going to cool down faster. If it's solid, thick glass, it'll retain that heat for a lot longer. You have more time to manipulate it before it freezes up. So back over here, he's spot heating the opening, getting ready to affect the top of the shape. We're left with kind of broken, uneven glass right now from when we took it off the pipe. He wants to clean that up, so he's going to trim it. Once it's hot enough, he'll sit down at the bench, grab the opening with some oversized tweezers. He's going to stretch and pull and thin the glass out. He'll jump in there with the scissors and then just trim that little excess material right off. Just make sure the opening's thin and straight. So stretch it out, grab the scissors, and then just cut and turn and cut and turn. That happens sometimes. Can we see if we can save it? Did it blow up yet? Hasn't blown up yet. Hasn't blown up yet. So that can happen at any moment. You know, it got too cold on that connection point, and then you just like, I don't know, moved the glass or was cutting the glass and it didn't like it, so it just sheared right off. Not bothered. Nice shot. You put it right back on center, didn't you? Nice. Cool. Back to work. So using the blades on the inside, rounding that shape out. It did lose a little bit of the kind of flatness a little bit, but we do have the ability to inflate this still. So kind of try to straighten everything up with the newspaper, blades on the inside.